So, welcome back to Jokkmokk again. This time I'm going to show you Hilleberg Soulo, and I will give you a good review of this tent. This is not an unboxing review where I haven't tried the stuff. This is a review with equipment that I really have used a lot. I'm going to talk about the good side of this tent. I'm going to talk about the bad side of this tent. Let's roll the intro. We are Stina and Matti. We run a lifestyle company in the north of Swedish Lapland. For living, we work as nature guides and dog mushers. This is our life, our dream and our home. You're welcome to follow us on the journey. So welcome back again. My name is Matti. If you haven't seen our channel before, me and my girlfriend run a dog sled company and a guide company up in northern Sweden outside Jokkmokk. We have 50 dogs and we do a lot of outdoor stuff. This is our life. Today I'm going to make a review of Hilleberg Soulo. So this is a freestanding one-person tent, 2.4 kilo. This tent comes in 3 colors. It's red, dark green and olive green. I picked the red one. Red color is also good because you can spot it on long distance in winter time in the snow. You don't need pegs for it. You can just put it up and move it around. Of course you use pegs so it should not blow away, but it's freestanding, so you can put it, see if it's not good, you just move it to another spot and put it there. In this tent you have this bag. In this bag you have pegs like this. It should be 12 pegs in this, should be. Now I only have maybe 10 left. You lose them now and then, and we also use this tent for our guided tours, and we have a lot of beginners out, and yeah, we lose pegs. This tent also has 3 poles like this. When you close the poles, don't snatch them like tick. Close them like this, a little bit careful, because it is a lightweight tent, and if you start getting grades or you hurt the aluminium here, suddenly it will not fit. And it's also very important that you really close it before you start bending it. Now I build all this. These ones are 9 millimeter. It's a kind of aluminium, high quality aluminium. I think more or less the same brand as most of the tents use today. It's called DAC, duck. It should be good quality. Of course, even this breaks down some. You can crack them sometimes if you step on them, or as I told you, if you don't close them and then bend them. Inside here it's a rubber. If you use a tent a lot in cold climate, this rubber, you have to change it sometimes after a few years. In this bag with poles you also have a spare pole. If you crack one, there is an extra. Here you also have a small tube, so if you crack a pole, you can put the tube over and put tape on. I have used it sometimes. If you use it, order a new one directly from Hilleberg or from the company where you bought your tent. 2 of these poles have the same length and one is a little bit shorter. Now we're going to pitch this tent to put it up, and I show you how to do it. I show how to do it in good weather, in calm weather. I make it different in storm. When I take a bag like this and it's empty, I don't just throw it like this, because if it's windy, it's gone. Here is a tent. I put all the bags back here. And sometimes I even put it inside my jacket. This is what I will call a Scandinavian tent. You put the flyer and the inner tent up at the same time. With the American tents, then you put first the inner tent and then you put the flyer on top of that. There is color codes. So there is a blue code here. You put the pole, check, so it's really into the bottom there, like this. Then you just find the other blue here. So, and red to red. Like this. And then we put, this one should be white. White color here. White to white. So, if it's really bad storm, first of all, I tie one of these into a tree or something, as I told you, and then I put all these loops to the ground. I put the sticks, a peg in each one of these. Now it's good weather, so I just put it like this. If it's bad weather, I hook one here and I go around. Now, when it's good weather, I just do it. It's not so important then. Just had to get the job done. And it's easy because you can see the line where the pole is supposed to be. I think this tent is really good because you can pitch it with really cold hands, and you can pitch it with gloves, big gloves. That's no problem. It's really easy to handle. It's also easy for beginners to handle. Then you see this freestanding tent, you can just grab it and carry around. In each place here, there is space enough for putting two of these poles in each one. I never do that. You don't need it. If you put double poles, then you hook these ones, one in pole number 1 and second in pole number 2, and so on. On top of this tent, you have a kind of roof like this that you connect down. I'm just putting it up for the video, so I will not put all pegs into the ground, but usually you put some here and some of the guidelines and so on. If the guideline is coming, the line is coming here, the peg should be sticked with an angle into the ground like this. If you put it like this, it will pop up. If you put it like this, the rope will go to the ground and it's much more stable. I also see a lot of people making it wrong. It's not a big deal, but this peg should be into the ground with a V towards the tent. Not so. It feels natural to put it like that. I know, I've done it for several years too. But if it starts moving, it can twist, so you put it like this. That's also the reason why they have put these small edges here, so the rope should not pop over. When you put these guidelines, you can just put it like this. I always make them as open as possible first, and then I peg them to the ground. if you put the guideline around the pole like this, you move some of the stress from the fabric to the pole. So if it's bad, really bad weather, that's good to do. If it's windy or heavy snowfall. If it's raining a lot, the water don't drip into the tent, the water comes here to the sides. You have one door on this tent. I open it. Here is the door. And this door you can put away like this. This flyer is Kirlon 1200. This can take 12 kilo. If you rip it, it's carry 12 kilo. Hey Annie! Hey! Annie think it's boring to make tent reviews. I think it's fun. Hey Annie! 12 kilos says nothing, but it's a good to look at that, and then you can compare with other brands. How much do they have? The inner tent have a different nylon thing that have some ventilation. The floor is super strong. This can stand, this I know the flyer can stand 5,000 millimeter, like 5 meter of water without start leaking. And the floor is 3 times stronger against water. It can carry 15 meter water. I never use these extra footprints for my Hilleberg tents. This floor is totally good enough, and you can put it. I put it on rocks. I put it on branches. I put it everywhere, and I have no leaking floor. If you get a leaking floor, Hilleberg, I know back in old days you could send the inner tent to them and they replace the floor, or you just buy a new inner tent. The inner tent here is also, the floor is like 7 or 10 centimeter up. It will be like a bath tube, the whole thing. You can take this away too. There is a mosquito net here for ventilation that you can roll down. Can open it here. This tent have a lot of good space. It's good for one person. You can open up the inner tent a lot, so you have all this free. You can, if you put your sleeping mat here, you still have place for your equipment. So when I camp with this, solo camping, I fit all my gear inside the tent, and I can still have place enough here for cooking. It's really nice to sit in the tent here cooking, actually, very nice. If you see, the walls are like this. A lot of tents are very low, like En and Acto is very low. This is more straight up. That makes it very lot of space, and it's really good if you use this thicker air mats, so it's really good. If we look at the ventilation of this tent, the whole fabric of the inner tent can give some ventilation. Then we have this one, the inner tent here. This is the only mosquito net you have. It's good, it's okay. I more or less always keep this open to avoid moisture inside the tent. If it's bad weather, you have to close it. The fabric go all the way down to the ground, so you don't get ventilation under the flyer. The only ventilation here is up here. I will show you. So when you close this tent and when you open up this, you can have like a small triangle here open. There is a black fabric here. This black fabric is also giving some ventilation, but it's not so much. This is actually the ventilation you get, and you see you have this small roof here, but if it's raining you had to close it up here, otherwise it starts raining into the tent. When I sleep I always keep keep it open like this if it's no risk that it blows in water to the tent, if it's not heavy wind. As I usually say about tents, I'm ventilation freak. I keep as much ventilation as possible open all the time. Inside the tent you have possibility to attach a rope in the roof where you can dry things. You also have over here you have 2 pockets where you can put glasses or smaller things. I would love to have even some big pockets here on that side, because I think it's lovely to have a lot of places to put stuff inside the tent. So we had to talk a little bit about the ventilation again, because I think that's such an important part of the tent. The inner tent is fine, the outer tent in autumn and summer, I don't think it's really enough ventilation on this tent. I want more. I don't know how to make a solution for that, but I know other Hilleberg tents have better solution for that. When we talk about Hilleberg, we also had to talk about the price, because it is a lot of money for a tent. I know that. But what you buy is that you buy good quality. All the details are good made, and it's not made by some used children in somewhere in Asia or something like that. I think the people who work for Hilleberg get okay paid, and that's also important to know. When you get a Hilleberg tent, you also get quality and safety, because it is important that the tent don't break down in the middle of nowhere. It's important that that you can feel safe when you have a bad snowstorm outside. It's a lot of money, it is, but you can always sell Hilleberg tent as a second-hand on the second-hand market, and you get a lot of money back for it, because a lot of people want to buy them second-hand. And if you want to buy a tent, check the second-hand market. So what's good and what's bad with Hilleberg Soulo? We start with the bad thing. I think this tent is super heavy. It's 2.4 kilo. It's double of the weight as Hilleberg. So it's a really heavy tent. I think the ventilation is not good enough for most of the time. I want better ventilation. I'm a kind of ventilation junkie. I always sleep with my ventilation open in my tent. So I love ventilations on the tent. Hilleberg have a bad reputation that they get condense in the tent, and in this tent you get condense, but it's not all Hilleberg, but in this one, yes. And what's the good side of this tent? The good side of this tent is that I think you can run over it with a tank, or I don't know. I lost it one time, it blew away. I find it 1 kilometer down in the forest from the mountain. It flew away in the wind. And the only thing I had was a scratch on this roof. It's still there. And I could just tape it and continue using it. So it's really, really good tent. If you stay in this tent in bad weather, you feel kind of safe. It's stormproof. It is very stormproof. This Hilleberg Soulo, you can't compare it with Hilleberg or Hilleberg Acto if you're talking about snowstorm or heavy winds. This is super stormproof. This tent is also super easy to handle. You don't need a lot of instructions to know which pole it's going to. You know, red sign here and red sign on the other side, simple. And it's freestanding, you can move it around. That's also very good. You don't need to have this good points. You can always find some place to attach it to the ground. This tent is also good if it's snowing a lot. Now I compare it a lot with Hilleberg and Hilleberg Acto, because they will be compressed in heavy snowfall. This tent will stand up even in heavy snowfall. So it is really, really good for wind and snow. This is what you can ask from a 4-season tent. Who should buy this tent? I would say if the weight is not a problem, like for a kayaker. If you're going with skis and pulkas up in the mountain in the winter time. If you go kayaking, it's also good that you can stop on an island with rocks. Then you need this freestanding tent. You can have heavy winds far out in the archipelago. So I think this is a really good kayak tent and a really good winter camping solo tours. Who should not get this tent? If you are a backpacker, if you spend a lot of time in the forest area, this is too bad ventilation for the forest area. In the forest area where you don't have the wind, you need much better ventilation. I wouldn't get it for a hiking tour in the forest area. I don't take it if I want a lightweight backpack, because it's double weight as Hilleberg. Before you run away and buy this tent, I think you should look at Hilleberg and maybe Hilleberg Acto also, because if you don't need the freestanding part, then if you don't need a super windproof tent, and if you don't need this tent for heavy snowfall when it's dropping 20 centimeters during one night or more, then this is maybe not the tent for you. Then there is other options that's also good. This tent is really good for people who make hiking tours on high altitude, where you can have heavy wind, where you need to camp on rocky terrain when you can't attach the tent to the ground everywhere. It's also a very good tent for kayakers who don't need to carry the equipment, where you put the tent into the kayak or into the canoe and you're camping out on the islands in the Stockholm archipelago, for example. There is also rocky terrain and it's difficult to pitch the tent sometimes. So it is a really good tent. It's a really good tent, but it's not made for everybody. So thank you for watching. If you like this video, please give us a thumb up or a thumb down if you don't like it. It's also very nice if you write comments, because I know a lot of you have a lot of experience about using this tent and other different kind of tents. Write in the comments, why do you think this is a good tent? Why do you think it's not a good tent? Or so on. Because then people who go and find this review, they can go down and read the comments and see what does you think about it. Because this is my experience of the tent, but together we have a lot of more experience. So feel free to write. And if you haven't subscribed the channel, do that and stay tuned. There will be more content on this channel. See you next time. Ciao.